Well, for anyone that's watching this, you're probably like me because you saw the post and you're like, there's absolutely no way I'm reading that. So maybe the video version will be more helpful for you. I was also trying to get AI voiceover of like Morgan Freeman or something like that to do it, but I have my creative director working on that. So hopefully I can get that to you guys. But I just want to say thank you so much again for jumping into this video and wanting to learn more about our story. I'm actually just going to basically walk through every single thing and probably provide a little bit of context, even more context, as crazy as that sounds. Probably not. This story about how we went from 0 to 400K. And so the first thing that I just want to say, I'm going to kind of skip over some of this, but again, to the team at Evolve and obviously to my partner, Shaun, I'm very, very grateful for all of them, especially Shaun. You guys are going to see Shaun kind of come up in this story, but there's anybody who deserves that GOAT icon next to their name. It's this guy right here. And I'm trying to click his name, but I can't. So let me pull him up. There he is, this big man right here. Just an incredible guy, incredible human being in general, and is, again, like I mentioned here, one of the most talented marketers that I know. And just for anybody who is from the Schoolers community that is watching this, Evolve is absolutely nothing without this guy. And I don't tell him enough how much I appreciate him, but every single day, this guy, he works harder than anybody I've ever met. There's times where he'll literally just go 2 days without sleeping because he just has to get things done. And so without him, Evolve is again, nothing. And I just want to make sure it's very clear that for anybody watching this or about to read this, that all of Evolve is, as you'll see, not possible without him. So for those of you guys that are probably higher level business owners that are maybe jumping into this, maybe you're doing 100K a month or 200K a month with your community, or maybe you're doing like 20 or 30 and you're like, dude, I just saw you post, a literal book in Skool. What's the TLDR? Put that TLDR up here. So I'm going to start by going through this. So I just want you guys to know that each one of these big lessons essentially come from my journey and from the story down below. But here I have 9 big lessons that I have learned as a result of getting to where we are today. And I've also got some tactical bullet points for you guys. And so first thing I'm actually going to jump into, actually to correct myself here, is the tactical bullet points, because this is the stuff that I think a lot of you guys are looking for. It's like, all right, bro, you're doing 400K a month on Skool. Like, what are you doing? So first thing I want to call out is one of our biggest channels that I don't see a lot of people talking about, and that's actually Twitter or X. I'm not sure if your customer is on Twitter, but one thing I know is that a lot of people with money are on Twitter. I always say, like, Elon Musk is on Twitter, like the president is on Twitter, Hermosi's on Twitter, like all these like big guys a lot of times are on Twitter. So it's a channel that, again, I don't see a lot of people talking about, but it might be worth testing for you. If you guys want to see the actual strategies that we use, this is my first little goodie that I have in here for you guys, which is the entire presentation that I did at, big shout out to Eddie. You'll see him in the story down below as well, at Agency Founders. And so this is just like a one that I optimized for Schoolers specifically. This talks about how I got from 0 to 100K per month. So if you're doing less than 100K per month, this is probably going to apply to you. And again, it's going to show you some of the strategies that we use on Twitter. So it talks about like what we actually sell, our numbers, our marketing, and the exact plan that I would recommend for you guys. So it kind of goes through all of this stuff, everything that was included. Some of these were videos. I don't know if they are videos in here anymore, but basically it just kind of like shows all of the stuff that's in here. And then on top of that, we have like literally the back end screenshot of what our Skool looked like in January. And then from there, I also have all of the marketing strategies, which is probably what you guys are looking for. These are the Twitter templates or, strategies that we were using, posting our crazy case studies and results, which is kind of the whole strategy. Engagement stuff, videos. I think the other one that we had up here was like the bold hook. Got our rope strategy here. We'll talk more about Shaun there. Kind of like the results. I also tap into our YouTube, some other word of mouth that we get as well as, what we do on ads and all that kind of stuff. And so final one that we did in here was also the free Skool community, which has all the information there as well. But this is another 35 plus pages of stuff for you guys to go through. Okay. The next one on here is our core metrics sheet that I'm also giving to you guys as well. So my saying, or Shaun's saying, is actually, if you're not tracking, you're slacking. And this is something that we implemented in January that has been a game changer for our team. So this is the exact sheet that we use to review with our team every single week, the metrics that we want to focus on and optimize for. And again, Skool metrics is coming soon. So this is going to make filling out this sheet even easier, or I don't think it'll make it irrelevant because we still go through the sheet. But my point is that this is the exact sheet that we use. I do have to give a huge shout out to Kyle Hunt as well. He's another legend. And this is him right here. I think I've got his profile pulled up. This is Kyle, completely dialed in our operations at the start of the year as well. And I just want to show him some love because, again, without him, this is another guy that has had a huge impact on our success. And so this is actually his sheet. I stole it, but I, Evolvified it. And basically this video right here will show you how to use this sheet. There we go. So that'll be the video. I'm not going to explain it. That if you guys want to watch that video, that's the other little freebie that I've thrown in there for you guys. And the next tactical thing is don't be scared to increase your price. We did over 150K last month, new evolvers, as a result of a 25% price bump. I think we had a day where we closed over like 35K in one day. And it creates urgency for new buyers. It locks in existing customers. And just as a big note here, like don't do this blindly, like make sure you know your value. We were looking at the average kind of return on investment that a lot of people involved that were getting, and it was ridiculous. Like guys were going from, we're in e-commerce obviously from like $1,000 a day in sales to like $30,000 a day. So we realized we could definitely charge a lot more, but don't be scared to increase your price. Don't be scared to remove access. So this is actually something that we did because I was too scared to increase price. And so back in April, we decided to remove one-on-one calls, DM access, our CRO program, our AI program, but we removed a lot of add-ons that we were just giving to people for free because we started getting to a lot bigger scale. And so we actually ended up having a 50K week back in April. This was a huge boom for us by just basically saying, hey, price is going to be the same, but new members are going to have to start paying for X, Y, Z. Okay. And so we just looked at a lot of the things that people were maybe not valuing. There was a lot of extra stuff that, when someone first came in, like we realized they just needed to go through the program before they got all these other things. And so we just started charging for that. And so we use that as an incentive to get people in. And again, don't do this blindly, understand your business and what's going on, but hopefully that's, some tactical stuff for you guys. Help members see a $sign to $sign ROI. What I mean by that is like, even if you sell, I don't know, like if you teach people how to do the piano, right? If you can somehow help people understand like, hey, if you become better at the piano, you can actually go, and this is a crazy example, but like you can go and play in public restaurants and you're going to be so good at the piano that people are going to tip you at like really nice restaurants, and like you could make $500 in a night and I'm charging you $20 a month to learn how to, play the piano better. Like crazy example. Obviously, is that really going to work? Maybe, I don't know. But think about it. Anytime you can try to show like a dollar to dollar comparison for like what they're getting, like, hey, I'm giving you money for your community. What kind of money do I get back? And that's obviously for a lot of you guys that aren't in a direct money niche. I would definitely recommend trying to consider how you can do that, whether you do it back end, front end, or whatever it is. So just a little bullet point there. Double down on your best performing content. This is huge. I went to Dubai in February and filmed a ton of podcasts with Shaun and some other people, and that absolutely blew up my channel. I went from getting like 500 to 1,000 views per video to like 3,000 to 10,000 views per video. So it was a massive jump. And that one podcast that I did got like 25,000 views, and it still continues to get views and close people into Evolve every single day. And so we noticed that like long form in person, if you can do it. If you can't do in person, just use a tool called Riverside and do podcasts with students that absolutely crush it in your community and post it on YouTube. That is like cheat code for us that has been absolutely crushing. And so I definitely recommend that you guys, and if it maybe that won't work for you, but if you have something else that does work really well, I would definitely recommend, doubling down on it. Okay. Identify your first win moment. So this is your like activation point is what Alex calls it. But the first win is what makes people stick. So ask your most successful members, hey, like what was your first win? And then double down all of your efforts, especially in the first 30 days in the onboarding process, on getting the new user that same win. If you guys have, this is not the right book, but if you guys do have these playbooks here, incredible, like go and read the retention run right away. If you don't, basically the TLDR is like put everything towards your activation point. So try to get as many people to that first win, incentivize them, help show them how to do it, eliminate, like tell them to not focus on other things and just to focus on that one thing first. But at the end of the day, it's crucial, and that's helped our churn a ton. Another one down here, again, another Moseyism. You're going to see a lot of Moseyisms in this. So just be warned, like I've consumed probably way too much Mosey content, but clearly it's helped. You need more better marketing. Again, famous Mosey saying, but churn will never go to 0%. So this is a big thing that we're focused on right now, is just more and better marketing. I'm much more of a better person versus a more person. You'll notice down later in my story, I'm really only doing one video per week still. Again, I should be making more, but I'm trying to make that one video that I post every single week just better. And again, I'm doubling down on content that I'm noticing is performing well. And again, for us in the core metrics, you'll see that we actually start tracking impressions over just total inputs, because if you're more of a better person, I'm not trying to confuse you here, but you will want to see like, okay, your inputs are going to go up, but the overall outcome should go up if you're doing things better. And so that's how we're tracking it. Final one here is don't sleep on your back end. We actually did our first $1 million month back to back with back end upsells. So for those of you guys that are in the 50K to 100K to 200K range, you guys probably have even just 1% of your customers. Like some of you guys have insane amount of numbers in your school because you're lower ticket, right? Like I have 400, 500 people in Evolve. For some of you guys, you have 2,000 people in your community. So 1% of those people are probably savages, and you can definitely sell them something for a lot more money. For example, our upsell is not technically 50x the price, but we're charging $50,000 for people to be in our high soul program. So just focus on building a program that solves the next problem. And that's what we did. So those are my tactical points. And that could probably be enough because we're already at 10 minutes. But just to kind of run through the lessons here, my 9 big lessons from 0 to 400K a month. Big lesson number 1, and just so you guys have context, this is going from like beginner to more advanced. And so this is kind of like, hey, if you're ground zero, and you'll see me kind of talk about this down here. So down here, I mentioned, hey, whether you're at ground zero, you have no skill set whatsoever, just trying to make money online, you have a skill set and want to build a community, you already have a community, but you're struggling to grow it, or you have a community that's absolutely crushing it. These lessons should help you, but just understand they go from like, I have no idea what I'm doing, I just signed up for Skool and what do I do? To like, okay, well, obviously I've got a Skool community going and I'm just trying to do better. Okay, so that's the order that these go in. But big lesson number 1 is you need to have conviction and consistency. The very short TLDR here is like, I have 2 must reads, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill and The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. I'll explain those a little bit more in the actual video, in the story section down below. And I'll try to add timestamps. Maybe I'll have to put this on YouTube so that way you guys can like see the timestamps for each big lesson. But big lesson number 2 is you need to build a world-class skill set that is actually valuable. So again, the more valuable your skill set, the more people are willing to pay. And I make a joke about this sometimes, but if you're flipping burgers at McDonald's, it's like, that's a meme in our community going back to McDonald's, but you obviously have a skill set. Like, you know how to make burgers. I don't really know how to make burgers at McDonald's. I'm sure I could figure it out, but that's the skill set that you have. Whereas for me, I have a skill set that shows people how to make a creative system that generates hundreds of ads a month to scale their business to millions of dollars a month. So my skill set's probably slightly more valuable than just flipping burgers. But at the end of the day, it's like skill sets are skill sets. If you want to make more money, you need a skill set that is essentially more valuable and valuable to the eyes of other people. Okay. And so the more valuable your skill set, the more people are willing to pay, or even just like the more rare, essentially. If you don't have a very valuable skill set, I would definitely recommend that you join Skool groups to gather skills. You'll notice like that's all I've done. I'll explain that down below. Then apply those skills so that they develop into a skill set that others are wanting to pay you for. Okay. And if you do have a skill set and you do have proof that it's valuable, never stop getting better at your craft. This is kind of going to take you over to big lesson number 8 is like, you can always be better. Trust me. If you think you're a savage at what you do, I promise you can be better. I get reminded of that every day. I still feel like I have no idea what I'm doing, just as an FYI. Big lesson number 3, put yourself in rooms that break limiting beliefs. Again, if you're in Skoolers or watching this video, this should already help break a belief like, hey, you can get a community to $400,000 a month. But if you really want to shatter your limiting beliefs, because a lot of you guys might be like, well, good for you, Spencer. I don't sell to e-commerce businesses and, I don't run Facebook ads that, are money in, money out. Totally fair. So in that instance, you need to get around people who are doing exactly what you're doing at 5 to 10x the scale. Now, for some of you guys, you're very new. So like there's people that I think in here that have like dog walking communities and stuff like that. I'm not sure if there's another dog walking community doing 400K a month, but if you just search and search and search, there might be some dog, walking company that does $100 million a year. Go and try to find the businesses that are in your niche and just try to get in touch with them. Try to offer, just pay them or do something to try to, get your beliefs broken where it's like, yeah, no, you might think you tapped out the dog walking market, but it's like, there's a company over here that does $100 million in the dog walking market. So there's probably a big enough market for you to continue to scale your community. And by the way, whoever is actually running that community is watching this, apologies for the horrible example, but just the more specific the thing is to you, the more your limiting belief will get broken. And I'll show you the example that happened to me as well down below. And as soon as you realize it's possible, your brain all of a sudden starts figuring out a way of getting there. Okay. Next one over here is big lesson number 4. So do not be scared to invest into yourself. The best investment that you can make is yourself. So do it. Again, another Moseyism, SME over the S&P every single day. Whatever return you expect to get from the S&P, you will likely get every month from the S&Me. Okay. So the example that I gave down below is that I've probably spent over $100,000. I've spent a lot more this year, but the previous years, I probably spent about $100,000 in the first 2 or 3 years of my kind of business journey. And that $100,000, if I put it in the S&P over the last 3 years, would have made me $150,000 to $200,000, right? But as a result of putting it into the SME, okay, into education, courses, all that kind of stuff, I now make that every single month. And so what I found is a lot of the times, whatever you're thinking about investing into like some kind of market, if you just put that into yourself, you have the ability to potentially make that every single month. Big lesson number 5, if you have a business with SOPs for your team, you have a Skool program. I don't know how many people in here actually have other businesses that are just trying to start a community. Made a post in the ACQ community about this. Basically, Evolve started as a training program for my team. Okay. I didn't actually originally build Evolve as a community. It was like, hey, if people buy it, cool. And we'll talk more about that in the story down below. But my point is that this training program is now worth over, I don't know how, somehow $400,000 per month. Okay. So if you're an existing business owner who is new to Skool, you already have a course created, or at least if you're an existing business owner with SOPs, you already have a course. You just need to kind of put it together, polish it up, package it, and then start marketing it. And all of a sudden now you've got probably a world-class program and potential community. Big lesson number 6, if you want to grow, you have to complete feedback loops. This is, if there's any big lesson for anybody to take from this, it's this one. Okay, feedback loops are honestly the only reason why we are where we are today. They are the hidden variable that is stopping you from achieving your growth. Just being consistent and just showing up every day. And you'll notice I actually call out Nick, and Nick Sarev, I probably butchered his name too, but honestly have so much respect for him and what he's doing. And just so you guys understand, like what he's doing is by himself. So like that guy's doing $320,000 a month. So technically like I'd say he's the goat of Skool still, but at the end of the day, he talks a lot about showing up every day, and he is 1000% right. The only thing that I would add on to that is like you need to make sure that you complete feedback loops as well if you actually do want to grow. Okay, I know a lot of people that work really hard, but they don't actually stop to like realize, hey, is what I'm working on actually getting me to where I want to go? That can be hard. I explain that a lot more down below. Again, the TLDR of this is you have to make sure you understand why things are working, and more importantly, why things are not working, so you can correct your inputs to get the outputs that you actually want. Big lesson number 7, you need to make content that helps people consistently. Big emphasis, all caps there. Your content needs to help a specific group of people and provide them with overwhelming amounts of value. We're going to talk about that as another big lesson. But then again, you need to do cool shit, okay? And that can take time. But that's a good thing because you're in this for the long run. At least I hope you are. Be authentic to you. Nobody wants to watch another version of someone else. They want to watch you. Even though if you don't know it yet, I promise they will want to see you. And then do not stop. Okay, these platforms demand consistency, so don't overload yourself. Get motivated by this video and be like, okay, I'm gonna post a video every day, right? Like it's just, you're not gonna be able to sustain that, especially a lot of you guys that are early on, okay? So make content that you can sustain for the long term. When I say long term, at least 1 to 2 years, till you can get to the point where you basically can afford people to help you increase the volume, all right? Now, big lesson number 8 is never stop sharpening your axe. This is one of my favorites. So behind Evolve is actually an agency. The agency that I started, you guys will see that in the story, that helps create all the information for our community. And that agency is, again, what helps me sharpen my axe every single month and provide my community with the most up-to-date and validated strategies to scale. So if you're struggling with churn, you need to continue to develop your skill set. And if you do, you will likely be able to provide your community with better information. And if your information is better, they're going to stay, okay? And so you really, like, this is one of the biggest pieces of feedback that we get all the time. The reason why people stay and evolve is because we're constantly giving them the newest information or the best information of how to do the thing that we're teaching them on. And the final one here, before we get into the story, 20-minute video before we've even actually covered the 20-minute talk. Big lesson number 9, provide overwhelming amounts of value. Skool sells a $500 per month software for $9 a month. Overwhelming value. We help brands hit $1 million a month in profit for $1K per month. That's overwhelming value. Alex did $100 million in 3 days after giving overwhelming amounts of value for free for years. You need to provide so much value that it feels like people owe you. And the analogy, I believe this is another Moseyism, but try to sell Ferraris for $10,000. That's your goal. And for context, for those of you like, well, I don't know how to provide more value, not saying you should jump on a call for $97 a month if you have a community, but for context, we did one-on-one calls with every single member. Okay, every single month until $150,000 a month with Evolve. So you can likely find ways to provide more value in your community, but you just have, and like, okay, you want to charge more. How? It's like, well, what could we do to add more value? So really just push yourself there. So that is my tactical list. That is my TLDR. I'm going to take a quick break here so I can actually drink some water. And then we're going to get into the rest of the story. And again, this is going to be probably about another 15 or 20 minutes. And so I'm going to walk you through a little bit more of my story. It's going to be a little bit weird reading this out loud, but hopefully, again, you guys can just get more context. But at the end of the day, this is everything from the story. Like anything that you guys need to know, like it's right here. And so with the way that I wrote this, it was really just to, make sure everybody knows who Shaun is and then try to give you guys like, hey, here's the big lessons. Here's the tactical bullet points for you guys. And you don't even really need to read the story. I'd rather almost see a lot of you guys just go and take action. But if you're bored, you've already got your work in for the day, you took action for the day, and you're like, well, I've got nothing better to do, Spencer. There's nothing on Netflix, then you can listen to the story. All right. So let's go ahead and jump into that. All right. So the rest of the story. Now I've already, I think, read this like 15 times and I'm so sick of reading it. But I had to proof it, and just FYI, there's probably going to be grammar mistakes and misspells and run-on sentences. I actually wrote this all myself. I didn't actually use ChatGPT to write any of this. I actually used a shout out to Nick again, Aqua Voice here to basically voice text most of this. So that's alone not really good. But then I try to clean it up as best I could. So hopefully it reads like a real, not a real person, a normal person actually wrote it. But again, before making this post, I'm just going to kind of read this and I'll stop when I need to. But I asked myself, like what could I write about that would help the most amount of people? And then I actually saw a few people commenting under Sam and Ryan's posts asking about my journey. Cool. So I decided that I would take you guys on that journey step by step, as best I could, so you can understand at each point, like what I did to get to where I am today. And again, one big thing here is like, I know a lot of you guys are going to want to replicate what we do with our community today. But most of you shouldn't really do that. What I would actually recommend that you do is you replicate what we did at your stage. And so that's the whole reason why I wrote it this way is like, okay, I was, starting with zero. What did Spencer do? That's kind of my goal. So you can see here, again, I already talked about this, but I believe, again, I've written this in a way that no matter the stage that you're at, you can get value. And just so you're aware, again, after every stage, I'm going to add commas and fix the grammar while we read this together. I have something called the big lesson. Okay, you guys have already read the big lessons if you've seen the TLDR. We're just going to kind of show you how those lessons came about. So if you feel like you are past a certain stage, you could skip it by scrolling down further, or again, using the timestamp here to go to the next stage. And again, this is about a 15 to 20 minute read according to ChatGPT, so I apologize in advance. Typical Canadian. All right, so I guess we should start with who am I? As weird as this sounds, I'm just a normal guy who had really high hopes for life and was determined to work hard until I eventually figured something out. And I have a very strong belief that no matter who you are, if you just commit 3 to 5 years of your life, work your ass off and just show up every day, you'd be amazed at how far you can go in such a short amount of time. For those of you who are asking, it might not be relevant, but I'm 26, so I started my online journey when I was 21, basically. More backstory that you don't need. I played baseball. I kind of got worse as I went to college. And so at around 21, I decided to quit because COVID hit. And then I just switched into the online space, which is this here. And as you'll see, I bought my first ever program from a guy named Iman Gadzi, he's a competitor now. But Iman introduced me to the agency space and most importantly, helped dramatically shift my mindset. And just as a little caveat here, for those of you that don't know, Sam actually consulted Iman very early on and basically every other modern day guru. But in the beginning phase, 99% of what will get you to like the next phase of actually starting to have something is just going to be your mindset. So because of that, my first big lesson is you need to have conviction and consistency. Okay. And so again, it's been quite some time since this shift happened for me, but there were again two really big books that impacted my life. The first one is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. This is a classic book, but if you haven't read it and you're very early on in your journey, if you're more ahead, you probably don't need to read this, but you can if you want. But if you're early on, like I definitely recommend that you should read this. Basically, after I read this book, I became, as it says here, a little delusional, but in the best way possible. And I came out with this sense of conviction, like this deep conviction, and I still have it today, that I'd be successful in business. And I didn't exactly know how or when. Like I didn't know if I knew I would make it at some point. I just didn't know when. But at the end of the day, I went from this mindset of, I wonder if I'll make it in this business thing to it's only a matter of time until I do. And that was really just because of that book. I remember I was like, I have videos of me. I'm definitely not going to show them. When I was like driving home in my car and I was like, I'm going to make it. I've realized everything's just a mindset. And so that book helped me. Okay. But at the end of the day, having, as much as I laugh at it now, this is like very serious. Like this was everything for me, guys. So having that conviction in yourself really does mean everything early on, because there's usually not going to be any signs that you're getting anywhere. And to give you an example, my first business idea, thought it was a great idea. And this just hopefully shows you guys that sometimes things just take time. Okay. My first business idea was selling marketing to gyms during a time gyms weren't even open. Okay. So I was reaching out to gyms during COVID. And so for those of you who are new to Skool, or maybe this is your first year or so in the online space, I want you to understand that in my first 6 months of business, I was not making $400,000 a month. I was making, as you can see here, $140 a month. Okay. One was a $250 website, and the other was a $600 payment that my dad's friend basically gave me to just try to run Facebook ads for him. All right. So for some reason, I want you guys to know, I still had conviction that I would figure it out and that I would build a successful business. And again, early on, that is just everything for you because you're not going to have signs that you're building a successful business until quite some time. All right. Now, the second book that really changed my mindset on things was a book called The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. This is honestly the only book that I've ever read more than once. I think I've read it 3 times. I hate reading. I need to start reading more, but it's a book that I would recommend every single person here should read. Like, I kind of read it when I feel like I'm slacking off or falling off a little bit. I just read that book and it kicks me in the ass. So basically what this book does is it helps you understand that little actions compound over long periods of time. And so when I look back at the growth of Evolve and try to pinpoint what was the one big thing that skyrocketed it, there really wasn't one. It was just small actions that were done every single day for years that have now compounded into the big thing that it is today. Okay. So for anybody who's early on in their business journey, you can find a way, if you can find a way to build conviction in yourself that you can do it, and you have to really commit to taking action and buying in for the long run, like you will be able to get through what I would say is the most grueling period of business, because for the first year or two, like you are working so hard and like you're just not getting anything. And the problem is it's just because you don't know anything. So if we fast forward into 2021, so from May to 2020 to May 2020 or to January 2021, I decided to make a pivot into the world of e-commerce. Okay. And thankfully someone who I met through a community mentioned I should probably stop reaching out to businesses that are suffering, gyms, and start reaching out to businesses that are thriving, which again, as a side note, is why communities are so powerful. They connect you with people a lot smarter than you. Okay. And as a result of making that pivot, I managed to get 4 clients my first year as an e-commerce Facebook marketing agency. Now, I don't want to get too personal, but another thing that you should know about me is that I care a lot about what people think. So the reason I provide that context, and probably the reason why I wrote too much here and now I'm like regretting it, but it is what it is. It's done. The reason I provide that context is that when I was running my marketing agency, I cared a lot about getting our clients results instead of just making money. And I think that's a really important mindset to have, especially if you want to eventually, have a successful community. Because as a result of that, every single time I got a client, as much as I still tried to keep doing the outreach that I needed to do to find new clients, I spent the vast majority of my time obsessing over how to get them great results. Okay. And for the first 2 years of my agency journey from 2021 to 2023, we didn't grow insanely fast because of that. And again, I didn't know it then, but those 2 years that I spent obsessing over getting as good as I possibly could at Facebook ads became the backbone of everything that we do now. Okay. Those years are basically what developed my core skill set, and that core skill set is what allowed me to build Evolve. Okay. So that leads me to big lesson number 2. And yes, I know we're only at number 2. You need to build a world-class skill set that is valuable. Okay. So once you have the conviction in yourself and you are consistent, over time, you're gonna start to suck less, as Alex says. Okay, you'll begin to get more of a more valuable skill set. Now, some of you may already have a skill set from other businesses or work that you've done in the past, but for those of you who are new or brand new to the online space, as much as this may not align with Skool's objective, and I know I'm kind of like going against I don't know how this is going to be received, but hopefully there's something that you guys could still have a community, but do this. Rather than like starting a community with zero skill set, if you ask me, again, this is just Spencer's opinion, I think it makes more sense for you to actually join someone else's Skool community to learn skills first. Okay. Once you learn skills, you then need to go and apply them. Okay. So my skill set has been made from basically paying dozens of different coaches, joining tons of different communities, and basically absorbing as much information as I can. And then from there, I spent the rest of my time going and applying everything that I learned. So I was just kind of going through this series of, I would go and talk to this coach, I'd go and talk to this consultant, I'd go and talk to this person, I'd join this community, and I would just learn bits and pieces, and those bits and pieces basically built me, and then I would just test the things that they told me. If they worked, I'd keep doing it, and if it didn't, I would just kind of move on. Okay. And so again, that last point of like actually applying the things that you learn is crucial. Okay. Because just learning new information doesn't create your skill set. You have to go and apply the information that you learn to develop the skill set. So my belief around how Skool should be used, again, is relatively simple. If you don't have a very valuable skill set, join groups to develop one. And if you have a skill set, and most importantly, you have proof that it's valuable. So again, what is proof? You have case studies, you have success stories, or it's an obvious skill set, like you could shred the guitar. At that point, I think it makes much more sense to then start teaching others through Skool how you do the thing so well. And just as a little BT dubs here, even if you are number 2, you should still join Skool communities, and you should still try to develop your skill set. Always be learning. And you'll see that in big lesson number 8. But the way that this has basically worked for me to develop my skill set is through my service-based business, which is the agency. But the truth is like a lot of you guys, like you don't need to take on the stress or risk of like starting a business or starting a service-based business. You could just go get a job working with someone else. Because here's the thing, you're not going to be working that job forever. You're just going to be working that job, and then you're going to be smart enough to know that you're going to join these Skool communities to learn new information so that you can apply it at your job and then get so good at it that you might actually just start making more money because the people are going to have to keep paying you for how good you are. Okay. And then at that point, even while you have the job, you might still be able to go and teach people again through Skool, or you can get to the point where you just teach so many people because you've gotten so good at the skill set that you don't need the job anymore. Right? So I believe that to have a big Skool community, you have to have a valuable skill set. And guys, we're talking about like how to get to like a big Skool community, right? Like for a lot of you guys, maybe you want to get to 30,000 or 50,000, or maybe you want to get to $400,000. Like you can't get there unless you have a valuable skill set that you can transfer to others. Okay. And the more valuable the skill set that you have to share with others, the more successful your Skool community will be, at least if you ask me. Okay. Now, jumping a little bit back here to the summer of 2021. So this is about basically a year now into my entrepreneur journey. I actually happened to meet Mr. Shaun. So we've been together for a while here. And I ended up hiring him as a media buyer to get our clients better results. And now at the time, I think I was 22. Shaun was actually, I think I was 21. I think Shaun was like 18. I don't even know if it was legal for me to hire him, but I did. Not on paper. I just like paid him as a contractor, probably like a couple $100 a month. But being able to look back on it, we were just, two kids trying to figure out how to scale e-commerce brands with Facebook ads. And the one thing about me and Shaun that I will give us credit is that we just always kept pushing to be better. So every single year, we just kept trying to crack the code for Facebook ads. And so that's what we did again for those 2 years. So fast forwarding a bit further to 2023, I was basically working 2 jobs and I was taking my agency very seriously during 2023. So my first job was figuring out how to scale clients with Facebook ads. That was about 75% of my time. And then the other job I had was finding clients, which was about 25% of the time. Okay. So in January of 2024, I was like, okay, we're serious. We're starting to get going. All right. I went to a business event. Again, invested into going into an event after finally starting to make some decent money. And at the time, I thought I was like this hot shot. I was like, bro, I'm making $80,000 in December with my marketing agency. And at the time, that $80K in revenue was probably about like $30K or so in profit, which, like, don't get me wrong, like that is good money. So you're like, well, what the hell happened, Spencer? We went from being an idiot to $30,000 a month in profit. Again, I was just building a skill set. That's all I was doing. Okay. But as a result of going to this business event, I watched a presentation by a phenomenal entrepreneur who I have so much respect. And again, another person that I'm very, very grateful for. I don't even know if you'll ever watch this, but Eddie Malouf. Okay. So Eddie absolutely shattered my belief about what was possible in the agency space. And on stage and in his presentation, he mentioned that his agency would be closing $200,000 a month in new deals every single month. Okay. So seeing the sheer scale that someone else who was in the exact same business as me, like, absolutely blew my mind. Okay. Like, this guy was saying that he was going to close 2 of my agencies, my entire agencies. And you have to understand, like, I spent 3 years or 2 years getting that clientele to get to $80,000 a month. And I would maybe close on a good month, $5,000 in retainers. And this guy was going to close 200,000 every single month. I was like, how is that possible? Okay. And so as a result of that experience, I made the biggest, not one, I made the biggest investment of my life. Okay. And I want to give you guys context. At the time, this was probably about 30% of the money that I had in my bank account after working for 3 years. Okay. So I made that investment to join his community. Again, another common theme here, to be a part of, a group of 7 to 8 figure agency owners, but more importantly, to learn directly from Eddie and his team, which then brings me to one big lesson here. And then another big lesson, which is put yourself in rooms that will break limiting beliefs. So if you want to grow, right, and you want to get to the next level, you have to surround yourself with others who are doing so much better than you to help break the limiting beliefs you have. Okay. So just by being in the Skoolers community, you are already surrounding yourself with other big players, right? So like, I don't want to call myself a big player because I just feel like we have a big community. That's it. We're very small in the grand scheme of things, guys, but I would highly encourage you to get around people who aren't just like, they don't just have communities, but again, ideally have communities or who are in your exact niche. Okay. Because if you see someone who's doing exactly what you're doing, so the example that I have here with Eddie is Eddie had an agency in e-commerce. That's exactly what I had. And he was doing $1 million a month, more than that. And so I was like, obviously I have something to learn from this guy because he had the exact same business as me. He knew all the ins and outs. And I could tell by the way that he was talking about all of the things that were going to happen. And this guy was doing 10x the revenue I was. So obviously I had something to learn from him, right? And again, like you can't expect this stuff to be free. Like I had zero value to provide to Eddie with my skill set. And I don't even know if I have any value to provide now. But I had to pay him with money to get access. Like that's what I had to do. And you should be thankful that you can pay some of these people money to get access to their stuff. But that just then brings me to obviously my next big lesson, which is do not be scared to invest in yourself. Okay. When it comes to investing, I honestly don't think that there is any better investment that you can make than yourself. Okay. For the first 3 to 4 years of my business career, basically any profits I had minus just my living expenses, I had like a little bit of a safeguard, I just used to buy more information. That's it. And whether it was one-to-one consulting, business events, communities, courses, I spent well over 6 figures on education, okay? And investing in yourself is by far one of the best things that you can do. And doesn't matter what stage you're at, you should still do this. And will get you the most outsized returns, okay? Again, another Moseyism here, but Alex's analogy of SME versus the S&P is something that just to this day I live by it, okay? If I had taken that $100,000 worth of money that I invested into education and decided to be safe and protect my money and put it into the S&P just as a backup plan, just in case, over those 3 years, today I would have around $150,000 to $200,000, which is still like, okay, I doubled my money in 3 years. That's kind of crazy, right? And I believe that's accurate. I didn't put money in the S&P, but that's what I believe the returns were. But either way, investing into the SME, okay? I now make $150,000 to $200,000 every single month, okay? Which is pretty good. And I know there are a lot of what ifs when it comes to consulting, and maybe you've been burned before, but if you ask me, there's literally zero bad investment that you can make with communities, coaches, or events, especially communities on Skool, okay? Because even if the information is bad or you already know it, like at least you, 1, know what not to do, or 2, you get confirmation that the thing you're doing is the right thing, right? And so as Alex says, again, notice at times everything I say is a regurgitation of Alex, but just be too good to fail. Like if you could just be so good to fail, like you could be in a program that like the guy has 1 module, but you're just such a savage, you just use that 1 module and you figure it out, like you did it. You know what I mean? So anyway, back to the story here. As a result of, seeing what was possible in the agency space and actually deciding that I wanted to go way bigger with my agency, and I was clearly thinking too small. As a result of, seeing how much revenue, that really motivated me. And just to give Eddie credit, like I was thinking way too small, and that, being in that room in January of 2024, which is crazy. It's like, now getting close to 2 years ago, but still, that changed my life. And so as a result of seeing how much revenue, I would need to add every single month to get to $1 million a month, I realized I would need a lot of clients. Okay. And for those of you that don't know the agency space, if you have a lot of clients, you need a lot of employees because you can't deliver services for hundreds of clients. Okay. So again, because I cared a lot about the results that we got, and again, I emphasize that because I think it's so important, like just actually give a shit. Like if you just give a shit, it helps so much in business. But because I cared a lot about the results that we get for clients versus just having a bunch of clients, I decided that in order to have the best team delivering the best results, I would need to build a training program. You'll notice up until this point, I haven't even mentioned anything about Evolve, okay? But the training program that I built is what most of you know today as Evolve. Okay. Which means that literally like Evolve was never meant to be this, which is what I find so amazing. And which is why you'll see in big lesson number 6, why that lesson is so important. But I made Evolve as a tool to train my employees so I could scale my agency and deliver for more clients. Okay. I was planning on paying people not $1,000 a month, thousands of dollars a month to go through Evolve instead of having people pay me. Now, thankfully, again, I mentioned Shaun, who is the real GOAT. He saw the value in the program that I had put together, and I worked really hard on it because, again, I wanted to just try to have the best agency that I could. And so he was like, dude, this is sick. Like, let's just sell this training program to brand owners who weren't qualified to work with us, and we could just see how it goes. And I was like, you know what? What the heck? Let me add a couple extra modules. Let me throw it in a Skool program just so that it's there, and, so be it. We'll see what happens. Okay. And, I thought that maybe we could sell 5 to 10K a month of these things. Like, that would be sick. But if you had told me in March of 2024, a year and a half ago, that this training program would be doing, $400,000 a month, I full on would have said, you're insane. Okay. You're insane. And so I just want you guys to know, like, how fast things can change when you continue to show up and complete feedback loops. Okay. Because literally a year ago, a year and a half ago, Evolve wasn't even a thing. Okay. So just to pause on that point, the one thing that I want to really drill down here is that Evolve is a thing because of the previous 3 years that I had put in, so that in the 4th year when I made it, it, compounded as fast as it has until now. Right. So without those 3 years before where I wasn't really making any money and I didn't really have, a very big agency, big being relevant, Evolve isn't what it is today. And so all of this stuff, it just compounds. It compounds over time. People would look at Evolve and be like, wow, it's grown so fast in a year. But the reason why it's grown so fast in a year is because it's the other years that went into it. Okay. So this brings me to big lesson number 5, which is for the business owners out there. If you have a business with SOPs for your team, you have a Skool program. Okay. So for those of you who are new to Skool, but have a business outside of it, you are sitting on a sleeping giant. Again, Evolve was just meant to be a training program that we paid people to go through. Okay. But again, thankfully, Shaun, in an effort to actually try to get more agency clients, decided to take to X/Twitter to start marketing all of the case studies and client results that we had got for our brands from the previous years. I don't know if it's gotten. I think it's just got. I guess it is gotten. And as a result of doing that, Shaun started getting a lot of attention from a customer avatar that we had not originally planned for. Okay. We realized that there was tons of e-commerce brand owners who didn't really want an agency to, work with, but still, wanted to learn how we were scaling brands. Okay. So with those inbound inquiries that we got, we decided to sell them the training program. And by April of 2024, Evolve had its first paying customer of $450 a month. Okay. And now again, the original avatar that we had planned on selling this to was brand owners who didn't really have a ton of money, but still had an e-commerce business, right? We were expecting these brand owners to be doing like less than 50K a month. Really, our requirement for brands that we would work with at the agency was like 50 to 100K per month. So they could afford, our $400 or $4,500 retainer. And we're like, okay, well, anybody less than that should be able to afford 450. But in May of 2024, we realized that after we got our first 10 to 20 people into Evolve, that some of these brand owners were literally doing more than our clients and making $100,000 to $500,000 a month with their brand. And here we were charging them $450 a month. Okay. And so we had people laughing at us. I remember Shaun people would DM Shaun after seeing his tweet of how he scaled to $2 million a month. And they'd be like, bro, what's your, do you have anything I could buy from you? Do you have any information? He's like, yeah, I've got this program. And the guy's like, well, how much is it? He's like, $450 a month. And he started getting replies where they were like, what? Are you sure? And he's like, yeah, it's 450. He's like, all right, bro, done. And so we realized at that point when people were laughing at us, we're like, okay, we need to do what we call complete a feedback loop to adjust and make sure that we double down on clearly this new opportunity that we found. So this brings me to big lesson number 6, which is if you want to grow, you have to complete feedback loops. So one of the biggest things that I preach to everyone in Evolve, and just to kind of double down on this point, by the way, before we get into feedback loops, I just want you guys to know that for those of you that have SOPs in your business, I do explain more about how to package it and how to do that. But at the end of the day, if you have SOPs, you just need to put it together and you will have a program. So I know we kind of got straight into the feedback loop side of things, but just to hit on that point a little bit further. But one of the biggest things that I preach to everyone in Evolve, and honestly everyone that I know in business, are feedback loops. Okay. And so what is a feedback loop? Well, a feedback loop in my terms is analyzing the outcomes that you get to figure out why things worked or why things didn't, and then adjusting your inputs accordingly. So again, put another way, just because I love saying things multiple times over and over. When you do something, so you create content, you test a new strategy, whatever it may be, and you get a result, you have to stop and analyze that result to see if the input gave you an outcome that you actually want. And the reason why I'm specifically framing this as gave you an outcome that you want is because we had some strategies that, that was our input, and we got an output that was not what we expected. Right? So with Evolve, when we started marketing it, we weren't expecting these people to have more money. So that's not what we were planning, but that was the outcome that we got. And I was like, that's a pretty good outcome. Some people might call that getting lucky. But sometimes when you do a lot of work, you get more lucky. But having an outcome that you want is important, because I was like, yeah, sure, I'll take people with more money. Done. Right? So if it did give you an outcome that you want or that you're happy with, you need to figure out how you got that outcome so you can do even more of the input. And that's crucial. All we've done over the last year to grow Evolve is just complete tons of feedback loops. And they happen maybe not every day, maybe not every week, maybe not every month, but they just happen at times where it's like, whoa, that worked. Why did that work? Okay, I think this is why. Let's do more. Okay. And that alone should hopefully be that should make you a lot more money. But this is the big thing. Okay. If the input that you put in, okay, did not give you an outcome that you want, you need to identify why so you can adjust your input and try again. So this is the thing that keeps so many people stuck. I don't want to spend too much time because I've got a lot more to get through, but feedback loops are the hidden variable to growth. Just having conviction and being consistent is not going to guarantee your growth, but having conviction, being consistent, and completing feedback loops, if you ask me, I'm not making any guarantees or claims, but this basically guarantees your success, okay? Because if you do that, you will start doing more of the things that work and less of the things that don't. And when you do more of what works and less of what don't, or less of what doesn't, usually good things happen, okay? And so again, by completing a feedback loop on who was actually buying Evolve, we realized these eCom brand owners actually had a lot more money than we thought. And so the amount of value that these guys were getting for $450 a month was it was laughable, right? And so considering what they were able to do with that information that we gave them, we realized hey, we should probably start increasing our prices. And so that's what we did every 1 to 2 weeks until we got to $9.99 per month, okay? And now that got us to the point where within the first 3 to 4 months, Evolve had grown from basically zero to 20 to 30 grand a month. Okay. And again, feedback loops, right? We had just found something that added $30,000 a month in profit. That was the same amount of profit that my agency was doing. Okay. And that took me 3 years or 3.5 years to get to that point. So I was like, all right, 1, we've probably got something pretty big here. And 2, Shaun, I don't know what you're doing on Twitter, but keep doing it, okay? And so I want you guys to understand that if it weren't for Shaun's tweets, nobody would have known about Evolve, at least not for a long time, okay? And so for those of you who want to see examples, because I completed a feedback loop to figure out what Shaun was doing, and now as a result, I've almost got 10K on Twitter. I'm still very far away from Shaun, but before, Shaun had 8K followers and I had 2, and I'm closing the gap. I'm at around 9 and he's at 20, but he's still crushing me. But the point is I have slides here that I just walked you guys through originally around what we did. Okay. Which then brings me to my next big lesson, which is big lesson number 7. You need to make content that helps people consistently. Okay. If you are not active on at least one social channel, okay, Instagram, Twitter, or X, I use them, whatever, YouTube, LinkedIn, whatever it may be, it is going to be extremely hard for you to actually build and grow a community, especially in modern day. Okay. So if you look at the top 5 people in Skool, I believe it's me, it's Anthony, it's Nick. There's another guy, Nate Savage. I'm actually in his community as well. Shout out to him. And we got another guy over there. So I don't know who the 5th one is. I think it might be the Skool mentors, but they all create content. Okay. And so notice here that my recommendation is not just to make content, it's to make content that helps people. Okay. And believe it or not, you don't have to make content about buying a new Lamborghini to build a big community. maybe will that help? I don't know. But we organically evolved to over $100,000 a month just from showcasing our skill sets on YouTube and Twitter. Okay. So even at the time of writing this, with us doing over $400,000 a month, our 3 biggest channels are YouTube, Twitter, and word of mouth. Those are the big 3. Okay. The craziest part is that Shaun and I have a combined 30,000 followers on Twitter and 20,000 on YouTube. And that is with a ton of overlap. Okay. Most people follow both of us or are subscribed to both of us. Okay. That is really not big of an audience, or not that big of an audience when you think about it, right? Most of you think that, we would have 300,000 followers or 200,000 subscribers, right? We don't. Okay. But the reason why we make so much money with such a small audience is because the audience that watches our content has money, right? We don't need a lot of people to see it. We just need the right people to see it. And the right people will see your content if you make content that helps them, right? So this is also something where, again, you'll notice we pivoted and you'll see the big feedback loop that we completed. But if you're selling to people that are really broke, it might be hard for you to, scale to a certain point. Now, again, marketing can help, but at the end of the day, think about who you're selling to, right? We originally planned to sell to people who didn't really have money. We saw that people who had money were buying, and so we pivoted to sell to them. That's what we did, right? Feedback loops. Now, for those of you who are brand new or who are scared to post on social media, you just have to realize that everyone is cringe when they start, okay? I go back and look at my first YouTube videos, even from 3 years ago, and I'm like, what is that? Oh my gosh, why did you post that? But it is what it is. Everybody starts and they're cringe. I'm going to look back 2 years from now and be like, what was I doing? Okay? For those of you who are posting on social media but not seeing good results, here are my 3 recommendations for you. Again, more Moseyisms here, but one, you have to do cool shit. Shaun was able to get a lot of eyeballs and grow on Twitter because he shared the results that we had got for our clients that were at the time, insane. If you guys actually go to our Twitters now, the results that we're posting of people, it's they are insane. We have people doing hundreds of thousands of dollars a day, right? That's not normal. And so again, we helped the brand scale to over $2 million in a single month. That was the big first case study that we got. And the truth is most people don't do $2 million in a single month, which is why it's cool. Okay. And so here's the thing. A lot of you guys don't know this, but it took us 3.5 years to get that case study. Or I believe it was probably 3 years. So for some of you, you just haven't done stuff that is cool enough yet that is really going to get attention. So you just have to keep working hard and completing feedback loops so that eventually you have more cool stuff that you've done. Okay. Number 2 is you have to be yourself. And in the online space, at times, this can be the hardest thing to do because it feels like every single person is the exact same. And this is something that even I, personally am working on. But Shaun, he's just literally himself 24/7. You cannot change Shaun. Shaun is Shaun. Okay. He is 100% him 100% of the time. That's why I love the guy. And that is something, again, that I have a tremendous amount of respect for. And people love him for who he is. Okay. The guy literally posts videos of himself in a robe, eating with his mouth open, talking about how to scale e-commerce brands. You guys can see this stuff on his Twitter. It's hilarious. And I don't even know if he's trying. I just think that's him being him. Some people are obviously funny. So that's why I said, at the end of the day, just be authentically you. And maybe, I don't know, be a little weird. I love you, Shaun. But very, very important to just try to be yourself. Okay. You cannot stop is the 3rd one. Okay. Do not stop. And many of you guys and gals, after, reading this, gals, might be motivated to go and start your social media and take it a lot more seriously. Okay. But the only way that social media channels actually grow is if you are consistent. Okay. So don't go and film 6 YouTube videos after reading this or watching this and say you're going to post 6 videos a week, because in the next month or 2, you're going to lose that motivation. All of a sudden, you realize that you can't keep up with making 6 videos a week. So as a result, you stop posting, right? If you look at my YouTube channel, I've consistently posted at least 1 YouTube video for a week. Literally every Monday I post. I just posted today for the last 2.5 years. Even if there's been times where I send a video to my editors on Saturday, I'm I love you guys. I'm sorry. I find a way to just get it done. And I've been able to stick to that for, 2.5 years. And again, should I be posting more? Absolutely. But my point is once you start, you cannot stop. And it just demands everything in business, consistency. And I told myself at the start of my YouTube journey that I know no matter what happens, I can maybe if I don't get run over by a bus, I don't know if I can make YouTube videos in, but like I was like, no matter what, I think I can find at least an hour or 30 minutes to make one YouTube video a week. So that's what I do. Okay. Don't try to bite off more than you can chew in the beginning, okay? Make sure you set a goal and build a plan to be consistent towards it. For context, it took me, again, I'm very small on YouTube, but it took me a year to hit 1,000 subscribers. And now in the last 2 weeks alone, I've gained 1,000 subscribers. So the stuff compounds like crazy with time. And of course, most importantly, feedback loops, okay? Now, finally, if we fast forward, I promise we're almost done, guys. If we fast forward to 2025, this has been a year that has gone way beyond what we could have expected or projected. At the start of the year, I actually met in person with Shaun, and our lead creative director at the agency was Carlo. Massive shout out to Carlo. I love you, brother. But he actually now has his own community making $50K a month. So again, we've doubled down on communities. But to discuss our plans for the year, that was what we did. And at the in-person get-together, we completed one of our biggest feedback loops yet. And that feedback loop was realizing, okay, we had just scaled an info product, as you guys can see over here, evolve to $100,000 a month in profit. Our agency had not gotten to the point where it was at $100,000 a month in profit. We had gotten there in revenue and beyond that, but we had not gotten there in profit. And so I was like, all right, let's go all in on this thing that's making us a lot of money, and let's pivot away from trying to build and scale a massive 100-person plus agency. Now, there's more context to that. We didn't just give up on the agency. And so I want to make an important caveat here for some of you guys that are in a business right now. It does not mean quit the business, because a lot of you guys, if you just keep powering through and you just keep doing the thing at your business, you can probably build a big business, okay? So I've had some people say like, maybe this is a shiny object and maybe I could have had a 100-person plus agency and a bigger agency. But the truth is I realized I did not want that. That is not what I wanted for a few reasons. Profit-wise, I knew I could make more money. Personally, I like running Facebook ads. I like scaling brands more than I like the idea of having a massive company. And so at the end of the day, I want you guys to understand, like, that's why we made that pivot. And AI also, had a big part in that. But at the end of the day, we decided to transition the agency to a boutique firm that works with bigger brands. And so this way we could pull even more insane case studies and use the team that we had built, because an agency, your biggest asset is the team. And we had a team at the time of around 20 plus people to test and validate strategies for us to then share with members and evolve, which again leads to another crucial lesson for a lot of you guys, no matter what scale that you're at, to have a great Skool community, is to never stop sharpening your axe. Okay. And at this point, based on the profits that we make from Evolve, it obviously doesn't make much sense for me to continue running the agency, but we made the transition from, at our peak last year, of 25 plus clients and 30 employees to now, as crazy as it sounds, 4 clients and 20 employees. But with this new model, it allows us to do nothing but get better at our skill set all day long. Okay. This is something that I feel like for us has been a bit of a cheat code for our success with Evolve that I don't see many people do, because most people, once they make more money coaching, they just stop their agency or they just stop the thing that kind of got them there. I didn't want to do that. And the reason why is because my favorite part of Evolve is that the program itself is constantly evolving. It's kind of like it's, cool little saying, but it's evolving because at the agency, we're always learning and testing new things. Okay, which then gives our community the most up-to-date and validated information on how to actually scale. And so we have people in Evolve who stay way longer than they would, and we know this because we asked them, just because of the fact that we are constantly updating and optimizing the program in real time. And they literally feel like they're missing out if they leave for just a month. They're like, well, Spencer could upload a new way to scale. And like now my competition that has that and I don't, because a lot of these guys' competition is also in Evolve. Okay. And so the best part of this agency, if you ask me, is despite having 4 clients and 20 employees, is like, it's actually profitable for us still. So we actually make money from it. So not only do we make money, but the information we get from it helps us optimize our skill set, AKA sharpen our axe, and make a ton more money through Evolve. Okay. This is a positive flywheel that, you don't have to do, but I absolutely love. Okay. Now, this is a sidebar, and I want to give a big shout out to just the Skool team in general, but this is genuinely where I believe Skool is changing online education as a whole. Okay. traditional online education is usually this, okay? You pay a large amount of cash up front for information that may or may not be good. Hopefully it's good. You then likely get sold into some kind of recurring monthly model on a lower ticket to just keep cash flow. And then course creators or coaches can basically sell or milk these programs for years, right? But now because of Skool, at least, I mean, I don't know if this was their intention, but more people can get access to better information at insanely cheap prices. Like, guys, I join communities that are like $100 a month, and I get in there and I'm like, what? How is this only $100 a month? Which is obviously one of my tactical things where I'm like, you guys can probably charge more. But at the end of the day, unless the information you have is good in your community, people can just go in for a month and leave. And that happens all the time at Evolve. I literally have people all the time say, listen, like, I got tons of value. I just can't really afford it. I could afford it for 1 month, so I'm leaving. I'm like, you know what? Good job, man. Now, I wouldn't recommend that. I think being a part of community, which is why you can see, like, as a community owner on Skool, you have to deliver every single month if you want someone to keep paying you. And more importantly, you have to make sure that your information gets updated or that your community is actually good, because otherwise that person is just going to cancel. But at the end of the day, this forces you as a community owner to be on top of your shit. Okay. And if you want to make the money that you actually feel your community is worth and your program is worth, and I know that people, I've had tons of different consultants tell me, Spencer, like, you could sell this thing for $20,000, like $30,000. And I was like, yes, I get it. But I don't like money. In all seriousness, I do. But at the end of the day, being on Skool is just, for me, it makes everything not only so much easier, but I love that it forces me to be better. Okay. And I genuinely think that, and Sam, and nobody asked me to say this is just my take on it, and it could be a terrible take, but I genuinely believe that Skool is revolutionizing online education as a whole, because it forces coaches to actually be good at what they sell instead of just being good at marketing. Like, I could be phenomenal at marketing, but if my product sucks, if Evolve actually sucks, there is no way we get to $400,000 a month, because of the fact that people would just leave. My churn would be like 40%. Someone would get in and be like, wow, this is dumb, I'm leaving, right? And we just, good timing there. We had someone join our other community. But my point is like, it forces you to be incredibly good at what you do. And I love that, because that's how it should be. And that's where it's going to get to. Because again, guys, like, as a coach, as a consultant, as a course creator, we sell air, okay? So it's like we have the highest margins out of basically any business industry because of the fact that we sell information, okay? And so at the end of the day, this is my advice for how to improve churn in the weirdest way possible, which I'm sure a lot of you are looking to do. So if you are constantly providing your community with the best information available and you continuously sharpen your axe, okay, you are going to be able to lower your churn, and you're going to be able to have a better community where people actually want to stay. Now, for anybody who is somehow still watching this after an hour or has actually read it, here's my final big lesson that I want to leave you with, and that's provide overwhelming amounts of value, okay? Another Moseyism. I might have to just start calling them Moseyisms. But one of the things that stuck with me is the idea of providing so much value that people feel overwhelmed by it. If you just try to become the most valuable person you possibly can be, and you provide more value to people than they expect, in my experience, I found it always pays more, okay? Look at Skool, right? They provide you access to so many tools that would probably cost you $500 a month for $9. Like, again, it's laughable, right? Why do they do that? Overwhelming value, okay? Look at Alex's most recent launch. He provided so much value to people. And just as a side note here, like, you guys have to understand, I probably save, I don't know how much money a month in commissions and in everything else by just using Skool. Like, I don't have a 5 to 10 person sales team. I have one guy who just like takes calls that people want to book. So now, is that saving me money? Is it making money? I don't know. But at the end of the day, like, Skool just makes everything way easier, just so you guys know. But talking about Alex here, right? For those of you guys, a lot of you guys probably are in Skool because of Alex's most recent launch. He provided so much value to people for so long for free that when he decided to ask people for money, guys, like, I don't think anybody understands how ridiculous this is, but he made $100 million in 3 days. It's insane, okay? That is overwhelming value, all right? And he probably generated, maybe $1 billion. He will generate $1 billion worth of value for other people, but Here's an example from Evolve specifically at a way lower level, but we've had people go from nearly bankrupt with their e-commerce brands to making $1 million in net profit per month as a result of the strategies that we taught them. Okay. These students pay us anywhere from $3,000 to $6,000 over the 3 to 6 months that it takes them to get those results. $3,000 to make over $1 million in profit recurring. Like, guys, that's overwhelming value. Okay. And so when you set out to build your first community or optimize your community after reading this, or watching this, I want you to ask yourself, like, how can I provide so much value to people that they won't believe they can get it for this price? And even though I'm telling people as a tactic to increase their price because, you want to keep the value gap good, but still, like, even at $1,000 a month, or we just recently price increased to $1,250, as you guys heard in the beginning, we are still providing so much value to these people. So if you actually go through and check out the slides that I included, so in here, you guys can see that we included one-on-one calls with me or Shaun for every person that joined. Like, we were literally doing, look at this, 173 members. We were doing one-on-one calls, okay? So we did that up until $150,000 a month. It actually might have been closer to like $200,000. But for those of you guys who are like trying to figure out how can I increase price, like, you got to think about how can you provide more value, okay? Now, thankfully, this is where the video ends, okay? For those of you who are wondering what we've been doing the last couple of months, as well as what our plans are for the future to hit 500K plus a month on Skool, I covered all of that in the tactical breakdown section up above, okay? That's in the TLDR. We already went through that. But for anyone who somehow made it to the end of this, watch this whole video. Thank you for spending the time with me. I hope it wasn't a waste of your time, and thank you for learning more about my journey. I hope that at least one of these lessons from my story can help you get closer to wherever it is you're trying to go. And to Sam and Alex, I might just clip this and send it to you because I do not even want you guys to watch or read this. But thank you both for inspiring me and inspiring millions of others with your work, and for continuing to do that. We would not be where we are today without you both. And once again, to Shaun and the rest of the Evolve team, thank you for all that you do to make Evolve the #1 community on Skool. And for anyone who has more tactical questions, as my good friend and fellow Canadian, big shout out to you, Nick, so generously did on his post. I'm going to try, but Nick is just one of a kind gentleman. I'm going to do my best to respond to as many of you guys down below. Now, I basically respond to stuff for a living, so I will try my best to get to every single person, but that is all. Okay. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. And again, I don't really think I need to say much else. I think I've probably, created the world's longest Skool post and a world's longest video about Skool. Shaun even told me, like, bro, this is way too long. Like, you need to just cut it in half. But I don't know. I wouldn't be being myself if I did that. So Shaun is a man of few words. I'm a man of many, but I hope you got value from this. And I hope, again, this helps you get closer to wherever it is that you're trying to go.